Steve Tarter, another version or another edition of Tartar Sauce, and right here on PJStar.com. With me, my guest, Jake Adams. Jake, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me.
Our podcast. I call it a show, but that's the old radio thing in me. Jake, how would you do, and I could do it, but that would be too easy. How would you describe what you do? Because people are going, Jake Adams, I've heard that guy. I've heard that name in Peoria.
Well, I definitely consider myself a serial entrepreneur.
Serial entrepreneur with an S. And you've done many different things. We talked, I think, for the first time several years ago when you were out in Silicon Valley doing a little presentation for your software startup. How did that go? I know it looked great on TV, or on TV again, on the video that they showed online.
Well, it was an exciting opportunity. Got to interact with a lot of the bigwigs in Silicon Valley, a lot of the VCs, and really spawned to a lot of good business opportunities and actually some other startups.
And that was to promote a software startup called Filterly, right?
Correct.
Filter, like camera filter. And what is that? People wondering, what is Filterly?
So it's a recommendation platform for content publishers. So if you're to think of somebody like yourself, if an individual went to your webpage, that news could only or would display relevant content to them.
Right.
And that's done by a lot of artificial intelligence.
So you'd fill out, okay, I like baseball, I'm interested in politics, I live in Montana, or something. I mean, you feed in all those factors, right?
Yeah, well, and it's maybe even smarter than that, right?
Oh,
so based on your social activity, what you've done on your Facebook and Twitter, and what kind of things.
So
you
it looks
share.
at what you're already looking at, tracking, and all that stuff. That to me is good, because one of the big problems, and I'm guessing people face this on an ongoing basis, is there's so much coming at you that you really need something to filter it down. I mean, you could look at everything, but who's got that time? And you're not going to really pay attention to a lot of it.
Yeah, and what we really saw was an opportunity. There's companies like Netflix and Amazon and Facebook that spend a lot of money in-house with these recommendation technologies, but they don't really allow anyone else to use it. So it's kind of about leveraging really good technology, for other businesses.
There you go. Now, we should mention you are your company, Sora, and people see that shirt, you got it right there, been around, 8 years? Doing work here in Peoria?
Yes. So we've been 8 years. We kind of started the managed service provider trend. So we have always been an IT department as a subscription.
Okay, and now you've got all these other things going on. You're just all over the map here, because we talked a little bit before we went on started up the mic here. Filterly led to, I don't know if it led to it, but Crave Crunch came next. So I know you're all thinking cereal here. What is Crave Crunch?
It sounds delicious, right?
Yes.
So Crave Crunch actually was kind of a spin-off company off Filterly. We've got some great paying clients in that space, but it's taking that recommendation technology, really focusing on e-commerce. So giving people that have an e-commerce presence the same kind of power that Amazon has to provide recommendations for the people going to those websites.
So give us an example. When you say people in e-commerce, so are we talking about a small business, perhaps?
Absolutely, yeah. Any SMB business, it could be even an enterprise. So if you think of any big pharmaceutical chains or things where they need recommendations for related products, any kind of filter lens that we can put on it.
How's that gone? Is it you getting a lot of activity, or is it still firing it up, or where is it at? No,
we definitely have clients in that space. We have a lot of vertical opportunities right now, so we're going after.
What does that mean? A lot of vertical opportunities. I'm going to ask you all these questions because you see, I'm right here on the ground level. What are these vertical opportunities you speak of, Jake?
So, in addition to the recommendation, we're really big on the business intelligence side, which really is just some giving real-time data to business owners to make the right decisions, for your sales or service. So we've been focusing on we have some contacts in the moving industry, and also
Yeah, that's me. You mentioned moving industry.
Yep.
You have connections in the moving industry. What'd you tell us?
I do actually. My great grandpa founded Morty Moving and Storage in 1935.
Well known in this
Yep.
in this part of the world.
Actually, yeah, at that time he worked for the Journal-Star.
Oh, really?
Yep.
And what did he do?
He actually helped manage the fleet of delivery trucks.
Wow. So he's a moving guy, you know? I mean,
Absolutely.
Well, we need him back. I'm sorry. We got problems in those areas. That's another story. Well, that's fascinating. So you've got all these things going, but now there's a new startup you're working on. In fact, you mentioned you're about to get it launched or get the promotion going in the next month or so. What will we hear from this new one?
So the new one is actually a joint venture between myself and actually one of our clients, and it's called Kintrip. And Kintrip.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a play on words, a little bit like Pinterest, right? Like pin your interests. So
Right.
kin as in family and trip.
Oh, okay.
So it's a social media site for family travel. So to provide recommendations, ask questions, give reviews on different places.
And that seems like you got a huge audience there because you look at the use of the internet, obviously it's for everything, but hotels, booking flights, and then of course you get into the comments below, more on the hotel side, I think. I think on the flights you really don't want to read those comments, but on the hotels, because what always amuses me is you'll get into like, oh, where should we stay? And I'm looking at these places and looking at price, but then you start looking at the experience people have had, and they're diametrically opposed. One is the best place. I'm going to go back. Next one, I'll never go there again. It's like, who do I believe? How do you deal with that when you're talking about family trips?
Well, yeah, and I think so one of the things that led to this startup, I mean, obviously the idea, but beyond that, the other party that is involved in this startup did a lot of market research. So they surveyed a lot of people, figuring out if there is that need. Right? Are we solving a real problem?
Right.
I think that's the most important thing, when it comes to ideation or coming up with something new, is it a real problem? Or am I creating a problem that isn't really a problem?
Right.
And it really seems like people recognize that there isn't an authoritative source for specifically family travel, right? People go to Travelocity or different sites and read those reviews,
Right.
but they're not really geared, under that same lens kind of, right, as the family experience.
And we're talking about, I'm probably talking about a lot of different things, but when you say family travel, I mean, I'm older, so I'm flashing to the station wagon with the kids in the back, and then off we go to Lake Wobegon, and, when are we there yet? And, all this stuff. But, I mean, it's more than that. I mean, right? I mean, it's probably just a wide variety of things.
Yeah, so like I said, you can post your experience on there, you can rate places, you can ask questions. So, hey, I'm going to northern Michigan. What kind of hotels or attractions make a lot of sense for my family? I've got a couple kids under 5 years old, right? Let's say something like that. That somebody can respond back to you, that you can get that conversation going that maybe right now is taking place offline between your friends and kind of close relatives.
Right.
But you can get a lot more depth and a lot more good feedback, right? If you be part of the community. And what's really interesting about that is it's a share all mentality. So it's probably one of the first social platforms that everybody sees everything, right? So it's really geared to bring a lot of transparency. So if you categorically pick, outdoor or camping as a category on Kintrip, you'll see all of the posts and reviews and questions around camping.
Oh, okay.
So you can search and filter that, or you can post your own question.
And, you mentioned camping, and I know that's come up with the eclipse, the total eclipse that's coming up here on August 21st. A lot of camping, because people want to camp within probably all over, but within the belt where it's going to be total. And, that's across the United States. And I'm thinking people want to know, all the campsites are going to be, the recognized ones are going to be full. What else can I do? Is that part of this? I mean, people might have little tips on, I guess we have to see who sends stuff in. But, yeah, if you go right at such and such a junction, you can find a whole slew of places no one knows about. Of course, once you put it up there, the world knows. So I guess that's that. That's so much of that for that fishing hole. But it will be tips. I would guess, and I know there's stuff out there on this, but it would be great, as you say, to put it all in one place. Families that go to Disney World, because Some only go once in a while. Others, and not just families, I know there's people that go as adults repeatedly. They have a lot of knowledge about how to do it, how to avoid the lines, what the best time of year is, how to save a little money. That sort of stuff would be great on there. I mean, just as somebody who is looking for, hey, I'm going there now, what do I do?
Absolutely. Actually, my kids are still a bit young to take to Disney World, but one of the best discussions I had was an offline discussion that I wish would have been on Kintrip by a friend.
Who gave you all
kinds of advice.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we're coming up from the share all mentality. It's a little bit like open source software, right? In that everybody can see the code and what's kind of, behind the curtain. If we really are sharing those positive experiences and also negative ones and saying, hey, avoid this place right now because here's why. and not just going off of, like you had mentioned before on the danger of the law of averages when it comes to like the stars and, hey, this has 4.5 stars on Amazon is, make sure you click on it and check the ones. Right? Because sometimes those 1 stars, those are really important, right? Maybe it's something that you really do care about.
Right.
But there's so many people, whether it's, created content, by themselves paying someone.
Right.
Or, other people that just really didn't have the same experience. But either way, I really encourage people to look at.
Will you have ratings on Kintrip?
Yep. So right now you can do check-ins and you can rate places and you can also rate it as part of the post. So we have some geolocation where it'll automatically use Google Places and it will figure out, based on your GPS location where you're at.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, we're talking with Jake Adams, who's got all kinds of things going on online. You mentioned your great grandfather, right, who started up Mordu Moving. So your family's heavily involved in the area. Mordu Moving is still a viable concern, still moving on. Your brother, tell us about your brother, because he's a Peoria celebrity, or was, or I don't know the latest, so you have to fill us in.
I don't know if my even my TechCrunch appearance can compete with the level of news publications that my brother's had. But my brother's Josh Adams.
Josh Adams.
Right, so most people would recognize him as Chef Josh Adams. Former owner of June Restaurant. Obviously, the most decorated chef from around here.
And it would always amaze me, June Restaurant, because it just, I think it just. When you said Peoria, it was like we used to always be known for Big Al's. That was the only thing. Caterpillar. Oh yeah, by the way, Caterpillar's there, but Big Al's is there. And now so all of a sudden June Restaurant arrived and became a new sort of a standard for Peoria. So what's he doing now? Because I think the last I talked to you, he went up to Michigan, came back, or something like that. And,
he was an executive chef up in Michigan. For one of the DeVos family. That started a lot of the big corporations and Amway and all those kind of companies. I think a year away from here, with his family not having other family that's close, him and his wife and their 2 kids, they moved back. So he's really been, still doing making knives and still doing some catering on the side. I mean, there's still a lot of.
But no restaurant in the wings here.
Not right now.
Not that you can relate to our listening.
Not yet, but we definitely. He's done some guest appearances at some different. I think he did one at. Is it that Midnight Express, the coffee place? I think he did one there.
Oh, yeah.
So I know he's done some different things for people and private events, but hasn't really gone through whether he's going to do the restaurant again or not.
Well, we'll stay tuned on that. You were mentioning, too, and I almost hesitate to ask you to explain it because I know I won't understand it, but it gives some idea of your abilities. You were talking before we started up here about a patent that you've got. Do you want to take a shot at explaining that patent, or it's good? It went over my head, so maybe it'll go over others. But.
Well, it might, but so it's really a device, a tool in the IT space. The first application is most people probably aren't familiar with a server rack, but the most important thing is that the equipment that's in a server rack has to have the cable plugged in, to the right connector or the right port on any device. It's really important in our world to make sure that that's the case. They're configured that way.
Okay.
So there's a problem when it comes to removing equipment completely, cleaning it, repairing it, replacing it, and keeping track of those cables, right? So it's kind of a fix for the labeling problem of, hey, this cable's labeled. Did this guy update where this is at? Is it going to go back in the right spot? So I made a device that you can attach to that rack, and you can actually take a connector out of that device, put it in the back of the server switch, whatever piece of equipment it is, and then put that cable into the new device.
Oh.
and it actually keeps track with a color coding and numbering system.
And this is your baby.
That's mine, and actually.
And what do you call it?
So project-wise, it's always been under the code name Project Spider.
Project Spider.
But I don't know
because of all the cables.
Exactly.
In it?
Yeah. Kind of like a lot of different limbs or legs, right? But really, the patent is very broad. I mean, it covers any type of connector for temporary cable organization. So I hope to bring it to a lot of different verticals.
Well, I'm glad you took a much better shot at that than I would have, because if you'd asked me to have to explain it, even after having you do it, and I'm a trained reporter, folks, I was still lost it. I want to go back to a thing. When was it that you were out in pitching Filterly? And so was that 2 years ago or 3? It's probably 3.
It was September of 2015.
2015. So it's been a couple of years.
Yep.
I just want to, because I think, and I'm trying to remember here how we first connected here, but I know I saw that video because I think Filterly we'd had some kind of communication about it was going on out there. But I was so impressed with the job you did, and this is before I had a chance to talk to you, because I'm watching this video and it's showing different people getting up in front of a pretty critical panel. That you weren't getting a one of these TV show kind of, oh, you're so wonderful, Dancing with the Stars thing. No, these guys were asking very critical questions, really homed in on, well, will this be viable and all this stuff. I mean, obviously it was a serious thing, and there were many different tech startups being presented. What was that like for you, preparing for that? I mean, did you just go into it cold, or did you have some idea of what you'd be doing there? Because you really handled it. People should look at. We'll give them the website so they can. It's still on.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a permalink out there actually.
yeah.
And I think TechCrunch and AOL
Yeah.
feed. But really, most people don't realize that I had a 5-day notice before the speech to actually give the speech.
Oh, okay.
Big
Did you
shout
rehearse
out.
a lot?
Well, big shout out to my wife because she was pregnant at the time. So she didn't love the idea of me going to San Francisco while she was pretty far along.
Oh yeah. So how did you work that one? That's probably that was probably more traumatic than the getting out on stage.
Maybe I'm better at sales than I think, right?
Yeah.
So going out there, we actually spent the first day while TechCrunch was going on, and we had a couple of the other founders running the booth.
All right.
My best friend and I, we actually rented out a good-sized space that we could just recite, and practice the presentation, get all the slides down, the timing, all the right words in all the right places. Mm-hmm. That was very important. But, nothing really fully prepares you for...
Right. Because they'll ask you questions that you didn't, you wouldn't have anticipated, probably.
Yeah, and really...
Or maybe some of you did.
I've given a lot of speeches to the, 100 and less kind of, total numbers of people or attendance. This was a couple thousand people there, and then maybe 100,000 people streaming. Mm-hmm. So you knew whatever you're going to do, it's either going to be, a great success or a flop. But either way,
it's a total wipeout.
Yeah, and it may go viral, right?
Yeah,
you never
right.
know, right?
You never know.
Maybe you face plant right as the wireless mic goes on, mic goes on, and then you say something you regret. Mm-hmm. And that was a different thing too. Is they had some little bit of touch up makeup they did. Mm-hmm. You had a wireless mic, so as soon as you actually walked across the threshold, it kicked on.
Yeah, you were going.
Yep. And we knew we only had 5 minutes. You had 5 minutes to present, and 5 minutes with a Shark Tank like billionaire VC panel.
Right.
That was going to drill you with no questions that you know in advance.
Right.
So there's nothing that you can.
That was
really,
5 minutes. Wow, that's amazing.
So 10 minutes total. Yep.
Compression.
5 and 5. And
I urge people to check this out because it will show them, kind of more about what the company does there, what Filterly does. Because boy, they really nailed it down. I mean, and this was in the early stages, right? I mean, this was a couple of years ago before you.
Yeah, that was really before we commercialized it. We did show a really cool demo. I think it was the New York Times, basically on what Donald Trump would like to read at the time, because that was when a lot of he was in the news a lot. So we took his Twitter feed.
Donald who?
Yeah, we took his Twitter feed and we ingested into our system, and then we showed the stuff he'd like to read.
Oh,
so we did a real time side by side.
Oh, you were right on top of everything here. You were predicting the next president and launching a company and handling it.
Well, I wasn't all the way on top of it because backstage I did not realize there was this guy over there in the corner, and he looked really famous, like just everybody was around him, and I didn't realize till later that was Iguodala from the Golden State Warriors,
the basketball player.
So I was about 6 feet from him the whole time. I didn't realize who it was.
Well. That's okay because I mean he's got a chance to come back to you guys now. Where do they go? What's the website where they can see that presentation?
So best thing is if you
just
search
Google?
for filter.ly TechCrunch, you'll find the video.
Okay.
I would like to say the best thing that did prepare me for that, and that I always recommend to people is going through all the Dale Carnegie classes. So one of my close friend and client had just sold his franchise, actually, Steve Grant, and he just did a great job in the high impact presentation class that I took. That brought me out of my shell.
Really?
I mean,
you didn't like getting up in front of people before that?
No, I was much more of an introvert. I mean, I do believe there's a good TED Talks on fake it till you become it instead of just fake it to make it. Mm-hmm. And I do believe you can make yourself, from a more introverted to an extrovert. And I've spent a lot of time, including those kinds of professional development courses, on making myself more comfortable in front of those large audiences with a lot of unknowns. A lot of unknowns, right?
That's good. Well, you mentioned Dale Carnegie, and that's funny because we're talking about high tech and all this, and Dale Carnegie goes way back.
It does. I think it's the oldest professional development institute,
and it's still going on. And I took it back, I think, in the '80s. So of course I have no recollection of anything, but I do remember the people there.
Was the '80s that bad?
Well, it wasn't so much that; it's just the memory is that bad. But the '80s were fine. But no, the folks that were in your group, you got to kind of know because you come back every week for whatever it was, 10 weeks, and you start kind of finding your people. Oh, this guy's going to do it. This woman's going to do this, and you find out first of all, hey, guess what? They surprise you because, as you said, you can come out of it because you go in and they force you to get up and explain yourself and all that stuff. And I'm sure that I'm not doing Dale Carnegie justice here because I don't know their program per se, but I do know that it was great to see the results. Pardon me. But anyway, we're talking about Dale Carnegie. We're talking about all kinds of things with Jake Adams. What's next for you? You got all these things going on. You got little kids at home, a family website. Is there a new website in the wings here or software plan for you, or is that always going on?
It's always going on. I mean, at this point in time, I'm somewhere between 80 to 100 ideas on my own list.
Wow, 80 to 100. That's a checklist. My goodness.
And I do realize that, right? You never have enough time or money to do everything. So it's about prioritizing the high value items that really could be commercialized or help somebody.
And you were saying too, because of your abilities here and your track record, that now folks will call you or sit down with you and explain, hey, I got this idea for blah, blah, blah. And, they've never been, either they're not tech savvy or they've got a part of the idea and they haven't got it fully, planned. And you can kind of help them or work with them or decide if you want to, I guess. Because I got an idea for you. I'll just launch it right here because I'm always thinking this is something somebody needs to do this.
As long as it's not a jump to conclusions map like
no.
that Office movie. So.
There it goes, folks. He took it away from me. No, here it is. One thing you hear, and I cover county and city government now, so it's getting to be a mantra in this community, and communities probably all over the country, that the Internet has had such a big impact on sales that the little ma and pa business is hurting. Now, maybe they need to be online, maybe they need to do this. That's the thing. But in the meantime, everyone's shopping online, or many are, more and more every year. And I just saw an article in the Wall Street Journal about how general stores were closing in old New England because they've been there forever, 200, 300 years, but they weren't able to keep up anymore. The dollar stores were coming in. Anyway, so that's the backdrop. So my idea is what Peoria needs, and I'll say Peoria, but I mean central Illinois, is kind of a shopping website where these businesses could all join hands. So if I want to send my family who lives out east a gift basket from central Illinois, I go to this site and I pick out, candy, nuts, shirt, whatever these products are, pasta. I'm thinking, well, let's see, we have kitchen cooked potato chips. I mean, I know there's certain things out there, but there's all kinds of small things. But I'd be able to shop through different vendors that want to get on board. What do you think of that? It's kind of an Amazon for Central Illinois. Is that viable? We got
Well,
problems?
you know, I think it's a lot better than to jump to conclusions, Matt. So,
See, he's also a politician, along with everything else. See, he knows how to slide away from the table.
yeah, I think there's some merit in that.
I'm not asking you to
I
take it on right away. Oh, you just think about it. Okay.
But you are right. I absolutely get a lot of ideas, maybe on a monthly basis. That
Well,
people
and that's
kinda
got to
pitch.
be both a blessing and a curse, right? Because, I mean, you know, while it's great to be wanted and, hey, I can help you there, it's also a matter of, whoa, I'm already working on, 80 to 100 things? Which one which one of these things? Oh, you're number 101. Let me put you on the list there. Well, Jake, it looks like you're one busy guy. Do you have trouble sleeping at night, or do you just go through all kinds of ideas?
You know, I'm a bit of an insomniac.
Oh, yeah.
There's probably another 100 or 200 ideas that I never even wrote down because I got to a point there where I wasn't sure if I could even keep up with it. I wake up, in the middle of the night, and that's kind of how I've always viewed the world. I mean, my strongest trait is ideation. So it's really
ideation. I don't
Yeah,
even
if
know
you're
what
familiar with the Clifton Strength Finder, so it's a test or a survey anybody can take, and it'll rank your 34 strengths.
Oh,
So
I don't know if I want to know that.
Well, in your case, with regards to the 80s, maybe not. But
It's all a blackout, Doctor. I don't remember a thing.
this isn't a confession, by the way.
Well, it is.
People are watching. So, but
It
yeah,
is.
I definitely think that's always been my strongest trait. And I, in my perfect world, I would be much more like a Dean Kamen, have a workshop, maybe 10,000 square feet, and I would just work on ideas all the time.
That's the Segway guy, right?
Yep.
Oh, see, I knew that one. All right. Well, you got my head spinning, Jake. Jake Adams has been our guest here on Tartar Sauce, and I want to thank Matt Dayhoff for bringing this off control-wise. And we'll have to have you come back, Jake, and maybe find out a little more about how Kinship is doing, because I got a feeling that's got to be just reach out to people all over the place. I mean, who doesn't want to go on a family trip and need ideas for that? So anyway, we'll keep posted with you. So we'll see you next time.